Today's topic is one that almost everyone has heard of, but most people don't fully understand: Azure Disk Storage. It's the virtual hard drive for your cloud VMs. And here's the thing: every single VM you create needs storage. Pick the wrong type, and you're either paying way too much or getting terrible performance. By the end of this episode, you'll know the 4 main disk types and exactly when to use each one. Grab your coffee and let's dive in. Why disk type matters: speed, capacity, and cost. So why does disk type even matter? 3 factors determine performance: IOPS, throughput, and latency. IOPS stands for input, output operations per second, basically how many read or write operations the disk can handle at once. Throughput is the data transfer speed, measured in megabytes per second. Latency is the delay, how long that first byte takes to arrive after you ask for it. Think of it like vehicles. A sedan handles daily errands just fine. A pickup truck hauls heavier loads. And a race car is built for pure speed. Different disk types follow the same pattern. Standard SSD is your sedan. Premium SSD is the work truck. Premium SSD V2 is a sports car you can tune yourself. And Ultra Disk is a Formula 1 race car. Here's the trade-off: higher performance costs more money. The trick is matching the disk to what your workload actually needs, so you're not over-provisioning and wasting cash, nor under-provisioning and getting slow performance. So let's start with the 2 broad categories of disks you'll attach to a VM. OS disk versus data disk, the 2 flavors. When you create a VM in Azure, it automatically creates an OS disk. That disk holds the operating system, Windows or Linux, and it's where the VM boots from. The OS disk maxes out at 4 terabytes, which is more than enough for the OS itself and maybe a few basic applications. But here's the thing: you can also add data disks. These are optional, and you attach them separately for things like applications, databases, or file storage. Each data disk can go up to 64 terabytes, and you can attach multiple disks to a single VM. Need more storage? Just add another disk. Now, both OS disks and data disks use the same 4 performance tiers: Standard SSD, Premium SSD, Premium SSD V2, and Ultra Disk. The difference isn't about speed, it's about purpose. An OS disk runs the operating system, a data disk runs your applications, but they both rely on the same underlying disk types. One more thing: Azure Disk Storage is persistent. That means your data stays put even when the VM is stopped or restarted. Nothing gets lost when you shut down for the night. Let's dive into the 4 tiers, starting with the most affordable. Standard SSD, the budget workhorse. Let's start with the entry-level option, Standard SSD. This is the lowest cost per gigabyte among the SSD tiers, and it gives you decent performance for basic workloads. We're talking about a maximum of around 6,000 IOPS and throughput up to 600 megabytes per second, depending on the disk size you choose. So when would you use it? Think development and test environments where you're spinning up VMs to experiment. Web servers that don't get heavy traffic. Low traffic applications where a few seconds of delay isn't a big deal. Remember the vehicle analogy from earlier? Standard SSD is your reliable sedan. It gets you to the grocery store and back. It handles the daily commute just fine. But you wouldn't use it to haul a trailer full of lumber or race on a track. It's built for everyday tasks, not heavy lifting. And here's where you need to be honest with yourself. If you're running any kind of production database, SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, skip Standard SSD. Same goes for anything sensitive to latency, like real-time applications, or anything that needs a ton of I/O operations per second. Standard SSD just isn't built for that. For those scenarios, you need a step up: Premium SSD. Premium SSD, the reliable pro. Premium SSD handles production workloads without breaking a sweat. You get consistent low latency and much higher IOPS than Standard SSD. This is where real performance starts showing up. Here's the simple breakdown. With Premium SSD, performance is directly tied to the disk size. Pick a disk size, and that determines how many IOPS you unlock. A P30 at 1 terabyte gives you 5,000 IOPS. A P60 at 4 terabytes delivers 20,000 IOPS. Bigger disk means more performance. So when should you reach for it? Enterprise applications that need reliable performance. SQL Server databases that aren't massive, but still demand consistent response times. Virtual desktops where users expect instant feedback. Premium SSD handles all of that. But here's the limitation: because performance is locked to disk size, you're stuck in fixed tiers. Want more IOPS? You have to buy a bigger disk, even if you don't need the extra storage space. That leads to over-provisioning, paying for capacity you never use, just to get the performance you actually need. Think of it like a dependable work truck. It's reliable, it's proven, and it gets the job done. But you're paying for the whole truck, even if you only need the extra payload capacity once a month. You can't just rent the truck bed for a day and leave the cab parked. That exact problem is what Premium SSD V2 was built to solve. Premium SSD V2, the flexible performer. Now, this is where things get interesting. Premium SSD V2 fixes the big issue with regular Premium SSD, being forced to buy more capacity just to get more performance. With Premium SSD V2, you can independently adjust capacity, IOPS, and throughput. No downtime, no disk swaps. Just change the settings and it happens. The baseline is generous. You get 3,000 IOPS and 125 megabytes per second of throughput included at no extra charge. That's already more than some standard SSD disks can max out at. From there, you can scale up to 80,000 IOPS and 1,200 megabytes per second. Plenty for most general-purpose enterprise workloads. Capacity ranges from 1 gigabyte up to 64 terabytes. Whether you need a tiny disk for a lightweight app or a massive one for a data warehouse, Premium SSD V2 covers it. And the latency? Sub-millisecond. For many workloads, it's comparable to UltraDisk, without the Ultra price tag. Here's the real value. Premium SSD V2 is significantly cheaper than UltraDisk for similar performance levels. You're not paying a premium for the name. You're paying for exactly what you need. Need high IOPS but not massive throughput? Tune it that way. Need lots of throughput but modest IOPS? Tune it the other way. No one-size-fits-all package forced on you. So what's it best for? Mainstream production databases, line of business applications, any workload that needs high performance but doesn't need UltraDisk's ceiling. SQL Server, Oracle, MongoDB, Cassandra, the databases that power real businesses. Premium SSD V2 handles them all. One limitation worth noting. Premium SSD V2 is currently only available with locally redundant storage, or LRS. That means your data is replicated 3 times inside a single data center. It doesn't support zone-redundant storage yet, so if you need your data spread across multiple availability zones for higher resilience, you'll need other options or add application-level redundancy. Still, for most scenarios, Premium SSD V2 is the sweet spot. You get the flexibility to right-size storage, the performance to handle serious workloads, and a cost structure that doesn't punish you for wanting better IOPS. But if your workload demands the absolute highest performance, think SAP HANA, electronic health records, or real-time trading. There's one more tier to cover. UltraDisk, the Supercar. Now let's talk about UltraDisk. This is the top tier. We're talking up to 400,000 IOPS per disk, 10,000 megabytes per second of throughput, and latency measured in microseconds, not milliseconds. Microseconds. UltraDisk is built for critical workloads where you can't afford downtime. Apps that need to be fast. Massive in-memory databases like SAP HANA. Health record systems where doctors need info instantly. High-frequency trading platforms where microseconds cost millions. AI and machine learning jobs that crunch huge datasets. Pricing is different too. Performance and capacity are separate. You pick your IOPS and throughput and pay for them separately from storage. So you can have a small disk with huge speed or a big disk with modest speed. You don't have to buy extra capacity just to get the IOPS. There's also zone-redundant storage. ZRS copies your data across 3 zones in the same region, so if one data center goes down, your disk keeps working. That's important for the workloads UltraDisk handles. Now here's a newer feature. Instant access snapshots. It's in preview for UltraDisk and Premium SSD V2. Normally, creating a disk from a snapshot takes time while data rehydrates. With instant access, you can create a disk in seconds instead of hours. And the new disk has near full performance right away. For disaster recovery, that's a big deal. You can spin up a full copy of your database in minutes. Think of UltraDisk like a Formula 1 race car. Incredible speed. Every millisecond counts. But you don't drive a Formula 1 car to pick up groceries. It's built for one thing, going as fast as physically possible. And you pay for that speed. So when shouldn't you use it? For most workloads, UltraDisk is overkill. Premium SSD V2 covers 95% of cases for a lot less money. If you're not running SAP HANA or a trading platform or something extreme, you don't need UltraDisk. Start with Premium SSD V2, only move to Ultra if your monitoring shows you need it. So we've covered the 4 tiers. How do you actually choose? How to choose the right disk? So you've got the 4 tiers. Now how do you pick? Start with 3 questions. First, is it production or dev test? If it's dev test or a low-traffic web server, Standard SSD is all you need. Don't overthink it. It saves money and gives good performance. Second, what IOPS and latency do you need? If you need low latency and thousands of IOPS, you need premium. The question is which premium tier. If your workload is steady, regular Premium SSD works. If you want flexibility to adjust performance without swapping disks, go Premium SSD V2. Third, what's your budget? This is where it gets real. Premium SSD V2 is cheaper than Ultra for similar performance in most cases. But if you're running SAP HANA or a trading system, speed matters more than cost. Let me give you a quick guide. Dev, test, and web servers, Standard SSD. Production with moderate IOPS, Premium SSD. Production with high IOPS where you want flexibility, Premium SSD V2. Extreme IOPS where sub-millisecond latency is critical, UltraDisk. Here are some cost optimization tips that actually save money. Right-size your disk from the start. Don't buy a 40 by Premium SSD if you only need 500 GB. Use Premium SSD V2 instead of Ultra when you can. It covers most cases for less money. Clean up old snapshots. They stack up and cost you. And choose LRS over ZRS if you don't need zone redundancy. LRS is cheaper and still gives 3 copies within one data center. One thing you don't need to worry about is encryption. Server-side encryption with 256-bit AES is always on. It's FIPS 142 compliant. Nothing to enable, nothing to configure. Your data is encrypted at rest by default. If you need more control, you can use customer-managed keys. But for most scenarios, the default encryption is enough. Before we wrap up, let's touch on a couple more features that matter for durability and security. Security, durability, and snapshots. Azure Disk Storage targets 99.99% availability, thus that's 5 nines. How do they pull that off? Simple. 3 copies of every piece of data. With locally redundant storage, those 3 copies stay inside one data center. A disk fails, another copy takes over instantly. With zone-redundant storage, copies spread across 3 availability zones in the same region. An entire data center goes dark, your data stays safe. Encryption, always on by default. Server-side encryption uses 256-bit AES and meets FIPS 140-2 standards. That covers data at rest. But maybe you need more control. Customer-managed keys let you hold the encryption keys yourself. Encryption at host goes further. It covers temp disks and disk caches, which the default encryption leaves out. For truly sensitive workloads, you can stack both. Snapshots are point-in-time backups. They run without slowing your disk down. The new instant access snapshots for Ultra Disk and Premium SSD V2 change the game entirely. You can create a disk from a snapshot in seconds instead of hours. For disaster recovery, that's massive. Spin up a full production copy of your environment in minutes. So that's the core of Azure Disk Storage, built for durability, security, and speed. Let's bring it all together. 4 disk types: Standard SSD for budget-friendly dev and test, Premium SSD for reliable production performance, Premium SSD V2 for flexible high performance without the ultra price, and Ultra Disk for the extreme workloads where every microsecond matters. Here's the bottom line. Match the disk type to your workload, not the other way around. Don't buy Ultra Disk because it sounds impressive. Don't skimp on Standard SSD if you're running a production database. Pick the right tool for the job. If this episode helped you make sense of Azure Disk Storage, subscribe and share it with someone starting their Azure journey. And tune in next time for another knowledge nugget.